Okay, we're back again. In this session, I'm looking at the explore and gather phases of inquiry learning. In the explore stage, we're wanting the students to kind of look around and see what information is out there on the topic, to then begin to direct them towards something that they want to explore further within the curriculum information, to get their ideas and so on. Then in the gather stage, this is after they've identified their question, but in the gather stage they're going to capture the information, the data, the facts, whatever it is that they need to be able to address the question adequately, and they're going to be guided by that question throughout the whole process. Now, that question part, this bit called identify, I'm going to look at that when we get together at the conference, because this is a crucial part that often students will stumble over, is really being able to articulate an inquiry question. So let's go and just look at the explore. Again, pulling out some of the action verbs to guide us. These are the core essential inquiry skills that they will develop at this stage, and they will be in an environment which we would hope to be a collaborative environment, because this is where they may be working in groups, or they may be working as a whole class as a platform, and then start to look specifically at the things that they want to investigate. There are different tools here, and what I've got is a combination of tools at this stage. There is a search tool with DuckDuckGo. There's also a video directory if students are more visual oriented. There's also a tool here called Instagrok, which is a combination. It has a search tool, but it also captures the data that is there that they want to retrieve in kind of a graphic concept wheel. Then I've included here a referencing tool. Now, the reason why I'm including that is because often students will just rush into something. They're given a research task, they'll rush into something, they'll be grabbing all the resources and everything, and they'll go away and they'll think about it, and then they'll come back and they go, well, where was that? Where did I find that? And so it's important in this explore stage, when they are just looking around at the topic, to capture some of that material, because they can easily delete that when they find that maybe that resource doesn't answer the question that they have identified in their inquiry learning. So all of those tools are quite useful, and again, these two sites will give you some extras to think about. This is the identifier, and as I said, I'm going to look at this when we're together, because this is actually the core of information literacy, where students are designing relevant and quality questions that they get to explore the kind of open-ended or the why, and it could be how we could solve this, how we could create this, how we could deal with this issue in society. And so, as I said, we'll explore that in the face-to-face environment when we're together. The gather stage is where they move on. So they've got their inquiry question that they've identified, and here they start to use that question to guide them as to what information they will gather. Now, this can definitely be an out-of-class experience for them in a flipped environment, because they could be individual or they could be working as a group. But this is where they're going to be getting the information, looking at whether it's relevant to answering their question, sorting out stuff, organising it, getting rid of what isn't appropriate and what doesn't address the task. All of those things will be happening here in that particular space. So there are a number of tools that can be used. One thing I would also indicate here, if your school does accommodate the Google Apps, then this would be something that you could use as a tool to be able to get the students to capture what they're gathering at this stage and how they're organising that through the various tools they're using, and be able to share that with you, because we're starting to move into the phase of looking at giving them the feedback so they can fine-tune things and narrow it down to specifics that they need to address. But there are different tools out there. This first tool here is a digital curation tool, and this is really something that you might set up as a teacher to guide them to specific relevant resources, particularly if they're in the lower school level. And that is a way for you as a teacher to be using this same process, to be gathering the relevant resources to assist them. You can do survey material. Students can access those. There are other survey tools out there. If they're wanting to capture images that they want to use, again, needing to capture their references so that they can record that information. And then with the Evernote is a way of being able to get that information into one space, and Evernote will allow them to capture different resource formats. But again, Google Docs is also good to have if they want to do that, or some of the other Google apps. But in this process here, you're able to flip this and take on the facilitator, guide, coach, mentor role, because you are able to provide them with some timely feedback so that they do stay on task and that they do address the inquiry question that they've identified earlier. So that's extremely important at this particular phase of inquiry learning. So what combinations can you use? Let's consider if they were using DuckDuckGo. They could use that as their search tool to find the sites that they want. They could then use BibMe to gather the resources that they will use to gather their information. And again, you give feedback, it helps them to narrow their focus, maybe refine their search. All of that can happen here. Then if you're using, say, Google Docs, they can share that with you. You can give them some feedback, have input into that, and again, you're helping them to narrow down and be more specific about how they will deal with then moving into the creation and sharing of their inquiry project. Now below you'll find the reference list for the resources mentioned thus far, and also you've got a video there on using Padlet, and there's a small task that I'd like you to have a go at completing before we all get together, and also to share that so that we have some resources that we use as a springboard to go into the live session. So looking forward to catching up with you at the FlipCon conference.